Hey guys, welcome to my gaming channel, Rina the Wolf here, and today let's talk about Resident Evil 5. Well, I'll be honest and just say it. I'm very critical about this game, and no, it's not because I generally don't like Chris. The partner system is kinda okay this time. Sheva proves to be really useful. The plot is... okay, this is where I really need to fight the urge to say the game is an absolute ripoff of Resi 4. See, in my opinion, the plot is basically the same. Remote area, small village with hostile people, parasites, then a mine, meeting someone from the past. Okay, nobody played Chris to hand the sample over. I get it. The partner system is different. It's not a babysitting mission, but damn, fine, I get it. The Las Plagas is success-led here. Fine, okay. Could we get at least slightly different enemies? I need to stop. Sorry. But look, we have feisty villagers, different stages of mutated villagers, larger enemies, giant Gatling gun enemies, even Irving's monster form looks similar to Salazar's from the OG. Okay, I'll stop, for real. Let's see what I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna talk about the plot, the main characters, the bosses, and my own experience with the game, and I will try to keep it short. At the end of the video, I'm gonna rate the following: plot, graphics, music, characters, and replay value. Please note that this is solely my opinion and impression of the game, and we can agree to disagree. Okay, that was another longer intro than intended, so let's jump right in. Set in 2009, 4 years after the events of Resident Evil Revelations, Resident Evil 5 follows Chris Redfield, now a seasoned veteran of the BSAA, Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, as he travels to Africa to stop a major black market bioweapons deal. The game shifts the franchise from the damp, claustrophobic corridors of the Queen Zenobia into the blinding, sweltering heat of autonomous zones in Africa, revealing the ultimate fate of Umbrella's legacy. Chris arrives in the Kijuju Autonomous Zone and is introduced to his new local partner, Sheva Alomar. Their initial mission is to apprehend Ricardo Irving, a rogue businessman smuggling bioorganic weapons. However, they immediately find the local population has been infected with Las Plagas Type 2, an upgraded, faster-acting version of the parasite from Resident Evil 4. The infected, known as Magini, brutally execute Chris's BSAA contact, forcing Chris and Sheva to fight their way through a completely hostile city. As Chris and Sheva pursue Irving, they discover Alpha Team has been completely wiped out by a mysterious, masked figure possessing superhuman agility. Before dying, a BSAA comrade hands Chris a data file. When Chris opens it, he finds a photo of Jill Valentine, his longtime partner, who was presumed dead after a confrontation with series antagonist Albert Wesker at the Spencer estate 2 years prior. Driven by the revelation that Jill might still be alive, Chris turns his mission into a desperate rescue operation. Chris and Sheva trap Ricardo Irving on an oil refinery. Desperate, Irving injects himself with a dominant strain Plagas parasite, mutating into a massive sea beast. After Chris and Sheva destroy him, a dying Irving directs them to a nearby cave system. Deep underground, Chris and Sheva discover the ruins of the ancient Indipaya kingdom, home to the Stairway to the Sunflower, the original source of the progenitor virus, the foundation of all umbrella viruses. They realize the facilities here are being operated by Tricell. The global pharmaceutical giant Jessica Sherwood and Raymond Vester were secretly supplying in Revelations. The operation is spearheaded by Excella Gione, the head of Tricell's African division, who is secretly working hand-in-hand with Albert Wesker. Chris and Sheva finally corner Excella and the mysterious masked enforcer. Wesker enters the fray, revealing himself as the mastermind. In a shocking twist, Wesker removes the enforcer's mask, revealing a brainwashed, pale Jill Valentine. Wesker had survived the fall at the Spencer estate, saved Jill, and used a mind-controlling chemical apparatus, the P-30 device, attached to her chest to turn her into his personal assassin. Wesker leaves Jill behind to kill Chris while he boards a massive tanker ship. After a frantic struggle, Chris and Sheva manage to forcefully rape the glowing P-30 device of Jill's chest. Free from the toxin, a weakened Jill begs Chris to leave her behind and stop Wesker before it's too late. Chris and Sheva board Wesker's tanker. Wesker, viewing humanity as weak and flawed, intends to launch a stealth bomber loaded with his newly engineered Ouroboros virus into the atmosphere. Ouroboros is designed to judge humanity. It will kill millions, leaving only a chosen few with superior DNA to rule a reborn world. Wesker betrays Axella, injecting her with Ouroboros. She mutates into a colossal mass of black, writhing tendrils, Ouroboros aheri, which Chris and Sheva destroy using a satellite laser. During a brutal struggle on the aircraft, Chris sabotages the engines, crashing the plane into the caldera of an active volcano. In the molten heart of the volcano, Wesker fuses himself with an Ouroboros missile, turning his arm into a deadly, whipping weapon of black tentacles. Chris and Sheva use the Terran against Wesker, capitalizing on his reliance on a specialized serum that Chris managed to overdose him earlier, destabilizing his superhuman reflexes. Chris holds his ground, famously punching a massive boulder into the lava to create a path for Sheva, and they finally send Wesker plunging into magma. As Jill drops a rope ladder from the rescue helicopter, a burning Wesker attempts to drag the chopper down with a final tentacle strike. Chris and Sheva grab dual rocket launchers, firing simultaneously into Wesker's face, vaporizing him completely. As the helicopter flies into the sunrise, Chris looks out at Jill and Sheva, finally finding closure. After over a decade of fighting the shadows left behind by Umbrella, Albert Wesker is dead and Jill is finally safe. Resident Evil 5 reintroduced some original characters while introducing new ones. It's hard to deny I'm happy with Sheva, because she proves to be more useful than our partners in Revelations. No hate, but Sheva's bullets actually damage the enemies. The villains, however, except for Wesker, felt cliché to me, and I felt like they had so much more to them, or at least could have been. So let's see those characters. Oh, if I left someone out in this part, I'm sure I categorized them as a villain. In Resident Evil 5, Chris Redfield undergoes a complete transformation, both physically and psychologically. If Revelations showed him transitioning into a high-level BSAA operative, Resi 5 is the peak of his career and the absolute emotional climax of his life's mission. He is no longer just a survivor, he is a hyper-focused, battle-hardened weapon built for one specific purpose: to destroy Albert Wesker and eradicate bioterrorism. After losing Jill Valentine in 2006, Chris spent 3 years obsessively training, packing on massive muscle mass. He did this specifically to ensure he could physically match the superhuman strength of Albert Wesker. This culminates in the infamous meme-turned-canon moment at the end of the game, where he literally punches a massive boulder into a river of lava to save Sheva. He is the ultimate powerhouse archetype of the series. When the game starts, Chris is deeply cynical. He has been fighting bioterrorism for over a decade, yet the world is only getting worse. In his opening monologue, he asks himself,
"More and more I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting for."
He is suffering from severe survivor's guilt. He blames himself from Jill's apparent death, and his mission in Africa starts as a standard BSAA operation, but quickly turns into an obsessive personal crusade the moment he realizes Jill might be alive. When he faces Wesker, he isn't just fighting a bioweapon. He is fighting his literal nemesis. He is forced to fight a brainwashed Jill, showing his emotional vulnerability. He refuses to hurt her, choosing instead to physically wrestle the control device of her chest at great personal risk. Even though I see some character development compared to previous games, for me, Chris is still too cold to like. Most probably because I'm just not into his muscles. Sheva Aloma is the co-protagonist of Resident Evil 5 and a highly accomplished agent of the BSAA's West African branch. Far from being just a sidekick, Sheva is Chris Redfield's emotional anchor and an exceptionally lethal operative in her own right. While Chris enters the African theater driven by past ghosts and a personal vendetta, Sheva represents the actual stakes of the local people. She is fighting for her homeland. Growing up in an industrial town, both of her parents were killed in a factory accident that was actually a covert bioweapon test conducted by Umbrella. Left an orphan, she was taken in by an anti-government guerrilla group. It was during her time with them that she discovered Umbrella was trying to sell a BOW to the guerrillas. She leaked the info to the American government, leading to Umbrella's arrest and her eventual recruitment into the BSAA. As Chris becomes increasingly obsessed with chasing Wesker and finding Jill, Sheva is the one who keeps him grounded. She constantly reminds him that they have a duty to stop the Ouroboros virus from wiping out the innocent people around them. She refuses to leave Chris's side, even when he gives her the option to back out, earning his fierce respect and proving that she is a partner equal to Jill. While Chris relies on brute force and heavy muscle, Sheva's fighting style is defined by grace, speed, and surgical precision. A little fun fact, since I didn't include gameplay with Sheva, but she's left-handed, and if you choose her, the game changes the camera perspective and angling for players. Anyway, I like her. She's young and still hopeful, and definitely brought something to the game. In Resident Evil 5, Jill Valentine undergoes the most radical, tragic, and visually striking transformation of her entire career. For the first half of the game, she is the literal shadow hanging over the plot, a ghost from Chris's past who is presumed dead, only to return as an unwilling weapon for his worst enemy. Her role in the game is the ultimate test of her partnership with Chris, pushing her from a legendary hero to a brainwashed puppet, and finally to a survivor reclaiming her identity. 3 years before the events in Africa, Jill and Chris cornered Umbrella founder Oswald E. Spencer, only to find Albert Wesker had already murdered him. During the brutal fight, Wesker was about to kill Chris. In a final act of self-sacrifice, Jill tackled Wesker through a window and both plummeted over a cliff into the ocean. While the BSAA searched for months, her body was never found and she was officially declared dead. In reality, Jill survived the fall and Wesker took her captive. He intended to use her as a test subject for his new Ouroboros virus. However, he discovered that a dormant strain of the T-virus from her past infection in Raccoon City had mutated, creating powerful antibodies that kept Ouroboros at bay. Instead of killing her, Wesker used her antibodies to stabilize Ouroboros and then subjected her to the P30 chemical, a performance-enhancing drug that granted her superhuman speed and agility but made her completely subservient to his commands. When Chris and Sheva finally unmask her, Jill is forced by Wesker to attack them. This leads to one of the most emotional boss fights in the franchise. Jill is a prisoner in her own body. While she is physically executing flawless, deadly acrobatic attacks and shooting at Chris, her eyes are wide with silent terror. She is entirely conscious of her actions, but physically incapable of stopping them until Chris and Sheva successfully wrestle her to the ground and tear the glowing P30 administration device directly off her chest. Once freed, Jill is physically exhausted but immediately shifts back into her role as a protector. She recognizes that Chris's emotional attachment to her is a liability, while Wesker is still breathing. She grabs Chris by his vest and commands him to leave her behind and save the world, providing vital information on Wesker's weakness. In the climax, it is Jill who arrives with Josh Stone in the rescue helicopter, saving Chris and Sheva. Okay, Jill is Jill. Heroine or brainwashed villain, she will always be one of my favorites. Josh Stone is the unsung hero of Resident Evil 5. As a seasoned captain of the BSAA's West African branch, he serves as a vital tactical leader, a fiercely loyal friend, and the ultimate reliable backup when everything goes to hell in Kijuju. While Chris and Sheva are on the front lines chasing Wesker, Josh is the tactical engine working in the background to ensure they actually make it out alive. Josh has a deep history with Sheva. He was her instructor during her training days in the BSAA, and he views her with a protective, older brother or paternal mindset. Josh is responsible for the most cinematic escapes in the game. He's a master pilot and driver, surviving situations that would kill standard operatives. I know I can't tell much about him because he doesn't have a lot of screen time in the main game, and it's hard to make an opinion like that, but I kinda like him. He's sweet and cares genuinely. Just wait until I play the DLC if you want more of him. Compared to Resi 4, we have very similar enemies, right? I really think OG Salazar's and Irving's final form look a bit alike. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm not listing Jill as a boss. I know, technically it's a boss fight, but nope, she's brainwashed. She would never want to assist in the destruction of the world. I'm also leaving out the Ndesu because, well, first of all, because I want to. Second, I can just consider that as a boss fight. Okay, it's intense, but the Ndesu is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Alright, let's see those bosses. There are actually 3 distinct encounters with the Ouroboros virus in the game. Developed by Wesker using the progenitor virus and Jill's antibodies, Ouroboros is designed to artificially select superior humans. When a host's DNA is incompatible, the virus aggressively rewrites their biology, turning them into a horrifying amorphous mass of black, writhing, leech-like tendrils. In gameplay, these bosses act as massive, puzzle-based anomalies that require tactical use of the environment. The first boss is a bioweapons researcher who was forcefully infected by the masked GL Valentine. Standard gunfire does very little damage. To defeat it, Chris and Sheva must lure the creature inside a high-temperature chemical incinerator chamber. One player acts as bait inside the room, while the other hits the switch to lock the doors and burn the monster alive. Deep within the Tricell research facility, Chris and Sheva face an upgraded version of the virus synthesized from the bodies of failed test subjects. This version is much larger, faster, and more aggressive. It grows massive, bulbous orange cores on its appendages, which serves as its vital weak points. It can also teleport short distances by breaking down into a puddle of tendrils and reforming behind the player. The arena contains a wall-mounted flamethrower that requires charging. One player must constantly wield the flamethrower to burn away the outer layer of black tentacles, forcing the creature to expose its hidden orange cores so the second player can blast them with high-caliber weapons. The first encounter? Easy, right? The second? A tough cookie, and for years it was my most hated boss fight. What was that? I said we need to face the Ouroboros 3 times? Yeah, I know. We'll get there. I promise. The Popo Karimu is one of the most memorable and aggressive mutant boss creatures encountered early on in the game. It is a specialized bioorganic weapon developed by Tricell using a combination of the progenitor virus and Las Plagas, utilizing an insect as the primary host. Chris and Sheva faced this airborne terror twice, first in the mining facilities of Kijuju, and later in an evolved form underground. The Popo Karimu is the result of injecting an organism with the progenitor virus, which caused massive cellular growth and forced a fusion of traits from 2 distinct animal classes, bats and arthropods. In gameplay, the Popo Karimu is a mobility puzzle boss. Because its entire head and back are armored, fighting it head-on with standard firearms is useless. Its only weak point is the soft, fleshy, glowing pink underside of its massive tail. The creature can spit a thick, web-like substance onto the ground. If Chris or Sheva step in it, they become temporarily trapped, leaving them completely vulnerable to a swooping strike. To defeat it, players must plant proximity mines on the ground. When the Popo Karimu crawls over a mine, the explosion flips the massive beast onto its side, stunning it and fully exposing its fleshy underbelly for heavy weapon fire. Chris and Sheva face the creature again in the ancient underground ruins. This time it has evolved slightly, featuring darker, tougher armor and moving with even higher speed. Same tactics can work though, fire away at its weak spot. The Popo Kermit looks a bit terrifying, but once you blow it up and it can get up, well... Ricardo Irving is one of the most animated and volatile antagonists in Resident Evil 5. Serving as the supervisor of Tricell's African Resource Development Division, he is essentially a high-level black market middleman smuggling POWs. While he starts the game as a smug, cowardly corporate criminal orchestrating the Kijuju outbreak from the safety of the shadows, his story ends with one of the most spectacular, large-scale marine mutations in the franchise. Irving is distinct from cold, calculating villains like Wesker or Excella. He is frantic, materialistic, and deeply arrogant. Despite his loud personality, Irving is a small fish in a big pond. He is being used by Excella to field test Tricell's bioweapons. Cornered by Chris and Sheva at an offshore oil refinery, Irving realizes he has been abandoned by Tricell. Given a specialized syringe by a Master Valentine, he despairs over being treated like a disposable pawn.
Research like this doesn't fund itself, you know. Yet everyone looks down on me. But not anymore. Don't do it!
And injects himself with a dominant strain, Plagas. Instead of losing his mind like the common Magini, the Control Plagas allows him to retain his consciousness while completely rewriting his biology, merging him with the surrounding aquatic environment into a massive sea leviathan. Irving's mutated body is a colossal, multi-tentacled aquatic monster reminiscent of a giant squid or prehistoric whale. His outer hide is entirely bulletproof. The creature attacks by slamming massive, armored tentacles onto the deck of the boat. It also attempts to clamp onto the vessel with a gigantic outer shell that resembles an overgrown clam or jaw. To actually hurt Irving, players must use the boat's mounted miniguns and rocket launchers to blast through the creature's outer layers. When heavily damaged, the monster opens its primary mouth, revealing Irving's actual humanoid body, fused at the tongue, hanging inside the beast's throat as its vulnerable nerve center. Shoot away, try to be precise, and don't forget to dodge. Excella Gione is one of the primary antagonists of the game. Elegant, brilliant, and ruthlessly ambitious, she is the head of Tricell's African division. Descended from the prestigious European Gione family, her world-class knowledge of genetic engineering allowed her to quickly climb the corporate ladder, turning Tricell into a global pharmaceutical titan on the back of Umbrella's ashes. However, despite her sharp intellect, her undoing is her blinding infatuation with Albert Wesker, which leads to her horrific betrayal and mutation into one of the largest bosses in the franchise, Ouroboros Aheri. Excella is defined by her high society arrogance and her toxic partnership with Wesker. Wesker manipulates Excella's ego, convincing her that she is genetically superior and worthy of ruling alongside him as his queen in a purified, virus-driven world. While she acts like the mastermind controlling the African bioweapons market, she is ultimately a tool. Wesker uses her position at Tricell to fund and manufacture the Ouroboros virus and the performance-enhancing serum he requires to maintain his own powers. When Chris and Sheva finally corner Excella, they find her discarded by Wesker. Having outlived her usefulness, Wesker infects her with the Ouroboros virus. As she collapses in agony, sobbing out Wesker's name, the virus completely rejects her DNA. Because she was left on the deck of a Tricell tanker ship surrounded by a pile of discarded corpses, the virus violently reacts to the massive amount of organic matter. Excella mutates into a colossal, multi-story tower of black tendrils that completely overtakes the deck of the Tricell tanker ship. It sprouts massive, skyscraping limbs topped with giant orange bulbs that rain down smaller Ouroboros spores into the deck. The scale of this monster is too massive for formal firearms. Chris and Sheva must unlock a military-grade satellite targeting device. The player must dodge the giant slamming tentacles, wait for the massive central core to open, and paint it with the laser to call down devastating orbital strikes. Just don't be impatient. Wait until the weapon charges up and this boss fight's in your pocket. Albert Wesker is the overarching antagonist of the Resident Evil franchise, and Resident Evil 5 serves as his absolute grand finale. Cold, brilliant, and possessed of a severe god complex, Wesker spends the game orchestrating his ultimate plan. Project Ouroboros, a global eugenic scheme designed to forcibly evolve the human race, leaving him as the undisputed god of a new world. His story culminates in a desperate, fiery showdown in an active volcano where he merges with his own creation, abandoning his meticulous allegiance for raw, monstrous power. In this game, Wesker is at the absolute peak of his power. Thanks to a prototype virus he injected himself with back in 1998, he possesses superhuman strength, speed, and agility. He can dodge bullets at point-blank range, move so fast he appears to teleport, and effortlessly overpower heavyweights like Chris Redfield with martial arts. To maintain this perfect balance of power, Wesker requires regular injections of a specialized serum called PG67A/W in highly precise doses. Too little and the virus weakens him. Too much and it acts as a deadly toxin. Chris and Sheva exploit this by overloading his system with the serum during their fight on the tanker ship, finally leveling the playing field. Trapped in the caldera of an active volcano after his stealth bomber crashes, a weakened and deeply humiliated Wesker decides to break his own rule. Driven by uncharacteristic rage, he smashes open a missile containing the Ouroboros virus and thrusts his hand into it. Because his genetic makeup is uniquely superior, the virus doesn't entirely consume his mind like it did to Excella or Irving. Instead, they form a symbiotic bond, creating a terrifying hybrid of a god and a monster. The black, writhing Ouroboros tendrils wrap tightly around his right arm, absorbing metal debris from the crashed bomber to create a massive, heavy, whipping scythe. He can swing this arm in massive arcs or plunge it into the ground to tunnel tentacles under the earth to attack from below. His trademark black trench coat is ripped open, revealing a large, glowing orange heart or core in the center of his chest. This core shifts between his chest and his back depending on his posture, serving as his only lethal weak point. For a man who prided himself on absolute control, his mutated form is clumsy, heavy, and frantic. He stalks Chris and Sheva through the magma field, screaming out Chris's name in pure, unadulterated hatred. The battle ends when the crust of rock beneath Wesker gives way, plunging him into the molten lava. Even as he burns, his sheer willpower keeps him alive long enough to attempt to drag Jill, Chris, Sheva, and Josh's rescue helicopter down into the magma with a final tentacle strike. Chris and Sheva finish him permanently by firing dual rocket launchers directly into his face, vaporizing him. You know how I feel about Wesker. He will always be my favorite Resi villain. I already said it. Resident Evil 5 is definitely not my favorite game of the franchise. I get it. All the events unfolded thanks to the massive success of Las Plagas, but no, something was off. Let's not even talk about the inventory. 9 slots? Once we got used to a nice spacey attaché case in Resi 4, the enemies, the locations, even the bosses were familiar. Okay, the partnership system is better. Sometimes it feels like it's even better than in 6, but honestly, I wouldn't have just sat down and played it if it wasn't for this video. Or my annual replay. Sure, it's not perfect, none of the games are, but for me, all along, something felt off. And it was not the plot. I don't know, let's just see my scores. So, someone who we're familiar with enters a scene outside of America and needs to fight off hostile villagers infected by a parasite. The deeper he digs, the more messed up it gets. Then he meets someone from his past, and he might be able to close a chapter in his life, and at the same time he can save the world. Sounds familiar? No, it's not the plot of Resident Evil 4. it's 5s. Okay, I know it's exaggerated, but I can't get over this fact. I'm really sorry about that. The only reason why I'm not absolutely unhappy with the plot is that we get to know Sheva and part of her backstory, and Jill is also back. Kinda. Let's just wait until I play the DLCs. So, score? 3 out of 5. I can't really complain about the graphics though. It lived up to 2009 standards, and the 2015 remaster really did a great job. I'll be honest and just say, if this game ever gets a remake, it doesn't have to be because of the outdated graphics. The enemies and characters are well detailed, the objects are beautifully done, and the water doesn't look like running snot. 5 out of 5. Once again, we don't really have a save room, but I love the end of chapter music. Let's see the trackside shows. The music never disappoints me in Resi games, really. 5 out of 5. I know, I don't like Chris in general, and most probably he will affect my score. But Sheva was a great choice as a partner. She's young, hopeful, and even though she's not as big as Chris, she can handle troublesome situations. Our villains are great. They are greedy and hungry for power, and Vesca's betrayal? Absolutely brilliant. I mean, Irving is a little bit weak of a villain for me. And oh, Josh, I really love the mentor role he fills. And yes, I can't score the characters without saying I love how we got Jill back, but thanks to Chris, the Jawhead, and Irving the Sucker, 4 out of 5. What bothers me the most is that the game really forces New Game Plus. I couldn't find a way yet to completely delete the save files, and yes, it does bother me. I get it, there are 4 difficulties, but we have extra modes. I think it should be way more than enough, right? The new mechanics are great, the limited inventory sucks, and just as I said before, if it wasn't for this video or my annual Resi Replay Marathon, I wouldn't play it just because I want to. 3 out of 5. And there you have it, guys. This was my review of Resident Evil 5. We have some more stories to tell here, and we have some mercenaries mode. Actually, 2 of them. So, wanna see that? If you're watching this review right when it comes out, first of all, thank you so much. Second, please be patient. The gameplay is going to be out soon. Commentary and no commentary editions. If you want to know what I'm up to, I have left a link in the description so you can follow the progress and the upcoming reviews and gameplay. Okay, I think it was way more than enough of my ramble. So, if you like this video, please consider giving it a good old thumbs up and wreck that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, it means a lot to me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!